The phone slipped from my hand, splashing into the sudsy water, and my heart stopped as the screen flickered to life, revealing his Face Me boss, Ethan Caldwell, staring back at me through the steam. I was naked, drenched, and mortified. My voice caught in a strangled gasp as I fumbled to end the call. 3 seconds felt like an eternity, but the damage was done. I sank into the tub, the warm water now feeling like a traitor, as my mind replayed the moment in excruciating detail. It was supposed to be a quick check-in call about the quarterly report, not a full-frontal disaster. My phone, now safely on the bathroom counter, buzzed relentlessly, each vibration a fresh wave of dread. Ethan Caldwell, the untouchable CEO of Caldwell & Co., New York's rising star in tech consulting, had just seen me at my most vulnerable. I was a junior analyst, barely 6 months into the job, and I'd just flashed the man who signed my paychecks. I grabbed the phone, hands trembling, and saw his message, "When can I see it again?" My stomach flipped. Was this a joke? A cruel jab? Ethan wasn't the type for games. His reputation was all sharp suits, sharper wit, and a gaze that could cut through steel. Yet here he was, texting me like we were something else. I typed a dozen responses, apologies, excuses, pleas for my job, but deleted them all. What could I say? Sorry, sir. I didn't mean to give you a show. I settled on nothing, letting the silence stretch, hoping he'd drop it. He didn't. By morning, another text, "Meet me at the office. 8 a.m. We need to talk." My apartment in Brooklyn felt too small, the walls closing in as I paced, replaying his words. Ethan wasn't just my boss. He was a legend in the industry, a 35-year-old prodigy who'd built a multi-million-dollar firm from nothing. He was also painfully private, his personal life a black hole no one dared probe. Rumors swirled. Some said he was married to his work. Others whispered about a string of discreet flings, but no one knew the real Ethan Caldwell. And now, I was about to face him after bearing it all. The subway ride to Manhattan was a blur, my reflection in the window a pale, anxious mess. I'd thrown on my best blazer, hoping professionalism could erase the memory of my soapy slip-up. The office, a sleek glass tower in Midtown, loomed like a guillotine. I stepped into the elevator, my pulse hammering, and when the doors opened to the executive floor, Ethan was there leaning against his office door, arms crossed, his dark eyes pinning me in place. "Elliot," he said, his voice low, almost amused. "You're early." I swallowed hard, clutching my briefcase like a shield. I'm so sorry about last night, Mr. Caldwell. It was an accident. I swear." He raised a hand, cutting me off. "Relax. It's not every day I get a call like that." His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make my face burn. He gestured for me to follow him inside, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline. His office smelled of leather and coffee, a world away from my cramped cubicle downstairs. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair. I obeyed, my mind racing for an escape route. But instead of firing me, he leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're good at your job, Elliot. The best analyst we've had in years. But you're distracting." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him right. Distracting. He tapped his phone, the same one that had caught me in the shower. Last night wasn't just an accident. It was a wake-up call. He paused, his gaze softening. And for the first time, I noticed the faint lines around his eyes, the weight of something unspoken. I've been watching you for months. Your work, your ideas. You. And now, I can't stop thinking about you. My breath hitched. This wasn't happening. Ethan Caldwell, the man who could silence a boardroom with a glance, was confessing. What? Exactly. Interest. Attraction. My world tilted, the lines between boss and man blurring in a way I wasn't ready for. I was 24, still figuring out who I was, let alone how to navigate a crush on someone like him. I'd known I was gay since high school, but I kept it quiet, especially at work. Yet here was Ethan, peeling back his armor, and I didn't know whether to run or lean in. I don't know what to say, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Then don't, he said, standing and moving closer. He stopped just short of touching me, his presence electric. But I need you to know this isn't a game. I'm serious. Elliot. About you. The air crackled, charged with possibility and danger. I wanted to ask a million questions. Why me? Why now? What did this mean for my job? For us? But his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening, and I caught a glimpse of a name, Marcus. A shadow crossed his face, and he stepped back, the warmth in his eyes dimming. We'll continue this later, he said, his tone clipped. I have a meeting. I nodded, dazed, and left his office, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Who was Marcus? Why had Ethan's mood shifted so suddenly? And what did it mean that the man who held my career in his hands was now holding something else entirely my heart, teetering on the edge of something I couldn't yet name? The next week was a tightrope walk over a pit of my own making. Every glance from Ethan in the office felt like a secret, every meeting a test of my composure. I buried myself in spreadsheets, trying to anchor myself in numbers while my mind spun with the memory of his words. I'm serious. Elliot. About you. But Marcus haunted the edges of my thoughts. The name had appeared again in a late-night email Ethan forwarded by mistake, signed with a curt, "We need to talk." M. I didn't dare ask, but the mystery gnawed at me. Was Marcus an ex? A current partner? A rival? I scoured Ethan's public life for clues, but his social media was a sterile gallery of corporate events and cityscapes. No trace of personal ties. At work, he was as polished as ever, but I caught him watching me brief, unguarded moments when his eyes softened, only to harden when someone else entered the room. One evening, stranded late at the office finishing a client pitch, I found Ethan alone in the break room, nursing a coffee. The city lights glittered outside, casting shadows across his face. He looked tired, human in a way I hadn't seen before. I hesitated, then took a chance. Long day? I asked, grabbing a mug to mask my nerves. He glanced up, a faint smile breaking through. You could say that. He set his cup down, his fingers brushing mine as he handed me the coffee pot. The touch was fleeting but deliberate, sending a jolt through me. You're still here. Dedication or avoidance? I laughed, the sound shakier than I intended. A bit of both, I keep thinking about what you said. His expression shifted, a mix of caution and something warmer. I meant it, Elliot. But this, he gestured vaguely between us. It's complicated. Complicated how? I pressed, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Is it Marcus? He froze, his eyes narrowing. How do you know that name? I fumbled, realizing I'd overstepped. I saw it. On your phone. And an email. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No. You shouldn't have. He said. But his tone wasn't angry. Just weary. He ran a hand through his hair. The gesture achingly human. Marcus's was someone important. It's not what you think. But it's not simple either. Tell me, I said, stepping closer. I want to understand. He studied me, as if weighing whether I could handle the truth. Finally, he sighed. Marcus was my partner. 5 years ago, we were engaged. Then he got sick cancer. He didn't make it. His voice cracked. Just barely. But enough to break something in me. I haven't let anyone in since. Until you. The weight of his words settled over us. Heavy and fragile. I wanted to reach for him. To bridge the gap. But fear held me back. I'm not him, I said softly. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I know, he said, his gaze locking onto mine. That's why this scares me. Before I could respond, the door swung open, and Sarah, a senior analyst, breezed in, oblivious to the tension. Ethan stepped back, his mask slipping into place, but his eyes lingered on me, a promise of more to come. I left the break room, my heart a tangled mess of hope and ache. He'd let me in, just a little, but it was enough to know this wasn't just a fleeting spark. It was real, and it was terrifying. Days turned into weeks, each moment with Ethan a delicate dance. Stolen glances in meetings, late-night texts about nothing and everything. A brush of hands in the elevator each chipped away at my defenses. But Marcus's shadow lingered, and so did the fear of what this could cost me. I was falling for him. Hard. But the office was a minefield. Whispers about favoritism started circulating, and I caught colleagues eyeing me with suspicion. I was good at my job. Damn good. But now every promotion, every praise, felt tainted. One night, Ethan invited me to his apartment in the West Village. A sleek loft that screamed wealth but felt oddly empty. He cooked badly. With a sheepish grin that made my chest ache, and we talked for hours. About everything but work. He told me about his childhood in Chicago. His dreams of being a painter before tech swallowed him whole. I told him about growing up in a small Ohio town. Hiding who I was until college set me free. When he kissed me, tentative at first, then desperate, it felt like the world clicked into place. But the next morning, reality crashed in. A coworker had seen us leaving his building together. And by noon, the office was buzzing. Ethan called me into his office, his face grim. This can't get out, he said, his voice tight. Not yet. It could ruin you. Ruin me. I snapped, hurt flaring. What about you? I've got nothing to lose, he said, but his eyes betrayed the lie. You're just starting out, Elliot. I won't let you get caught in the crossfire. I wanted to fight, to tell him I didn't care about the rumors. But the fear in his eyes stopped me. He was protecting me, but it felt like he was pulling away. As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Be careful. He's not who you think. The anonymous text burned a hole in my pocket. He's not who you think. I wanted to dismiss it as jealousy, a prank. But doubt took root, twisting every moment with Ethan into something I couldn't trust. Was he hiding something beyond Marcus? I spent nights scouring the internet, digging through old articles about Caldwell and Co., but found nothing but praise for Ethan's brilliance. Still, the message lingered, a splinter I couldn't pull out. At work, the distance between us grew. Ethan was all business, his warmth replaced by curt nods and brief emails. I told myself it was for my sake, to quash the rumors. But it hurt like hell. I missed his laugh, the way his eyes crinkled when he let his guard down. I threw myself into my work, hoping to drown out the ache, but it only made the whispers louder. Sleeping his way to the top, I overheard in the break room, and it took everything not to scream. One evening, desperate for answers, I confronted Ethan at his apartment. He opened the door, surprise flickering across his face before he let me in. You can't just show up like this, he said, but there was no bite in his words. Who sent that text? I demanded, holding up my phone. What aren't you telling me? He sighed, sinking onto the couch, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. I don't know who sent it. Elliot. But I can guess. There are people competitors. Ex-employees would love to see me fall. They know about us. Us. I echoed, my voice breaking. Is there an us? Because it feels like you're shutting me out. He stood, closing the distance between us, his hands cupping my face. I'm trying to protect you, he said, his voice raw. This world it chews up anything good. I lost Marcus to illness, but I'm losing you to fear, and I hate it. Then don't, I said, my hands gripping his shirt. Let me in. All the way. He kissed me, fierce and unyielding. And for a moment, the world was just us. But the moment broke when his phone rang, a harsh reminder of reality. He ignored it, but I saw the name Marcus's sister. My stomach dropped. You're still in touch with his family. They're all I have left of him, he admitted, his voice barely audible. They don't know about you. Not yet. The truth settled between us. Ethan was still tethered to his past, and I was fighting for a future he wasn't sure he could give. But I wasn't ready to give up. I'm not asking you to forget him, I said. I'm asking you to choose me, too. He nodded, tears in his eyes. And for the first time, I saw him not as the untouchable CEO, but as a man carrying too much weight. We spent the night talking, unraveling the mess of our fears and hopes. And when I left at dawn, I felt lighter, like we'd crossed a threshold. The next day, Ethan called a company meeting. The room was tense, whispers swirling, but he stood tall, his voice steady. There's been talk, he began, his eyes finding mine in the crowd. About my personal life, and about Elliot Parker. I'm done hiding. I'm in love with him, and I'm not ashamed. Gasps rippled through the room, but Ethan didn't flinch. He laid out new policies: transparency, protections for all employees, a commitment to fairness. He was risking everything. His reputation. His company. For me. For us. I stood frozen, my heart swelling, as colleagues stared, some with shock, others with quiet respect. After, in his office, I grabbed his hand. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he said, pulling me close. You're worth it. The anonymous text stopped, and the rumors faded, replaced by a cautious acceptance. We weren't naive if feared be challenges, judgments, maybe even losses. But we faced them together, building something stronger than fear. Ethan still carried Marcus in his heart, but he made room for me, too. And I learned to love him not despite his past, but because of it. It had shaped him into the man I'd fight for, the one who'd fought for me. In the end, it wasn't the accidental call that changed us. It was the choice to answer, again and again, until we found our way to each other.